Have you ever heard the story of the king who lost absolutely everything, only to become one of the most powerful beings in history? It's a story about a man who, through just sheer force of will, challenged the gods and totally remade himself, from a warrior into a godlike sage. This is the incredible story of Vishwamitra, and we're about to dive deep into his epic journey. So today we're really tackling one central question. How on earth does this man on the left, King Kaushik, a powerful ruler born into the warrior class, become this man on the right, Brahmarishi Vishwamitra, one of the most revered sages in all of Hinduism? Trust me, the journey between these two identities is nothing short of epic. All right, so let's start at the very beginning. We meet King Kaushik. Now, this guy is a mighty and proud Kshatriya king, that's the warrior class, and he rules over the prosperous kingdom of Kanya Kubj, which you might know today as Kannauj. He basically had it all: immense power, a massive army, and a whole kingdom at his feet. And the goal he would eventually chase is just fascinating. The title Brahmarishi isn't something you're just born with. No, it's the absolute highest level of spiritual achievement. It's a status you can only earn through unbelievable self-discipline and control. It's a title of merit, not of bloodline, and that right there is the key to this whole story. You know how every great story of transformation has that one single moment that changes everything? That catalyst? Well, for King Kaushik, that moment came during a visit to the humble ashram of the great sage Vashistha. This one little visit would completely alter the course of his life. And you're not going to believe this, but the entire epic conflict started over a cow. But listen, this wasn't just any cow. This was Kamadhenu, a divine, wish-granting cow who, to the king's total shock, was able to whip up a feast big enough to feed his entire army. He had never, ever seen power like this before. And what happens next is this amazing clash of two different worlds. The king, being a king, is used to just taking whatever he wants, so he demands the cow. The sage, Vashistha, politely says no. So the king does what he knows best: he uses his army. But here's the unbelievable twist. His entire military, all his worldly might, gets completely and utterly crushed by the spiritual power of one single sage. And this humiliating defeat, this was his light bulb moment. He realized that the power he had as a king, his armies, his wealth, all of it was basically nothing compared to the immense spiritual power that Vashistha had. And it was right then and there that King Kaushik decided he didn't just want power anymore, he wanted that power. So what does he do? He gives up his kingdom, his crown, everything, and starts down this path of intense penance, or tapasya. It's this incredibly rigorous spiritual discipline. But this journey was no straight shot to the top. As he was about to find out, his greatest enemy wasn't some rival king, but his own mind. He spent years, we're talking maybe even centuries, in deep meditation, building up this incredible spiritual energy. But the gods, who are always watching, weren't about to make it easy for him. They kept sending him tests to see if he was really worthy of the power he was chasing. Okay, so the first and most famous test came from Indra, the king of the gods himself. He was getting a little nervous about Vishwamitra's growing power. So he sends his most beautiful celestial nymph, an apsara named Menaka, with one simple mission: break his concentration. And guess what? The test totally worked. Vishwamitra was captivated, his penance was broken, and they even had a daughter together, Shakuntala, who becomes the hero of her own famous story. But eventually, Vishwamitra realizes his mistake. This was a massive setback, but it also made him even tougher. He left his new family and went right back to his quest, more determined than ever. But even after dealing with distractions from the outside, his toughest tests were always internal. That deep-seated warrior's pride and a temper like a volcano, those were his biggest hurdles. Again and again, one burst of anger, one moment of ego would completely wipe out years of his spiritual progress. But this is a story about perseverance, right? So after countless years, after failing over and over and having to start from scratch, Vishwamitra finally reaches the climax of his journey, the moment he didn't conquer the world, but he conquered himself. So after finally getting a handle on his anger and his ego, he was at last recognized as a Brahmarishi. And the person who gave him this title, the one to finally validate him, none other than his old rival, Vashistha. I mean, talk about a full circle moment. The king had finally truly become the sage. Now, as a true Brahmarishi, Vishwamitra's story doesn't just end there. It actually enters a whole new chapter. He went from being a seeker of power to a giver of knowledge, and man, did he leave behind an incredible legacy. His role in the Ramayana is just absolutely crucial. He becomes the guru to the young princes Ram and Lakshman. And he didn't just teach them. He armed them with divine weapons and guided them through their first major challenges. He was basically the one who prepared Ram for his ultimate destiny. But perhaps his most lasting gift to the world is the Gayatri mantra. He discovered it through his intense meditation, and this sacred verse from the Rig Veda is seen as one of the most powerful and holy mantras in all of Hinduism. It's chanted by millions of people to this very day. So, when you look back at his whole life, what's the real message we should take away from all this? Vishwamitra was never a simple character. He wasn't a perfect hero. He was complex, he was flawed, and he was profoundly human. And this duality is exactly what makes him so fascinating. On the one hand, you have his insane strengths, a determination that could literally challenge gods, and this endless thirst for knowledge. But on the other hand, his weaknesses were huge, a terrible temper and an ego to match. His greatness doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from the fact that he managed to conquer these massive flaws. His life is just the ultimate story of struggle and self-improvement. It's defined by failing, time and time again, but always getting back up, and finally achieving something impossible, even against the odds of his own birth. And that brings us right to the heart of his legacy. What does this journey of a king who defied his own nature and the cosmic order, what does it really teach us? It all comes down to this one powerful, timeless idea. Vishwamitra's entire life proves that it's not the circumstances of your birth that define you, it's your actions, your karma, that truly make you great. And that is a message that resonates far, far beyond any ancient text.